Good morning, it's Brian. It is the Art of Startup War. You are here for another 40 minutes where you get to experience another incredible entrepreneur, a company that we intend to invest lots and lots more money into because we absolutely love what their platform is doing. I'm going to bring Sriram to the show. Again, you're going to see a very strong influence over the last couple of months, and definitely going forward for the next couple of months, where we're starting to do so much more work with Indian entrepreneurs. And we're doing this because for us, we just see the entire future of where unicorns are going to be growing in a very different place than Silicon Valley. So the lovely thing about Expert Dojo is we give other investors the opportunity to share this deal flow with us. And this interview is intended as an opportunity for you to be able to dig a little bit deeper into the company, look under the hood, see what's there, find out about the technology, and understand how this company is going to scale going forward. So Sriram, welcome to the show, my friend. I couldn't be happier to have you as part of the Expert Dojo portfolio. I know we're new friends and new investors, but I'm looking forward to turning this into something absolutely huge in the future.
Likewise, I'm very excited to be here and to be part of the Dojo program.
So we's talking about ShoppinPal, right? So I want you to take, and actually I've had a really good opportunity not only to really dig into this, but also to start digging in to some of the folks that are actually in the cloud kitchen space over here. It's a phenomenal area that you're in. It's absolutely fascinating. It is probably, if we're going to define some of the things that change us from the old world to the new world and how we're changing as a society and how that provides unbelievable opportunities to bring new business models where there are no incumbents. It's just about starting from scratch. Yours is a great example from that. So let's start with maybe an overview of ShoppinPal and what ShoppinPal is. And then I want to dig really quickly into the genesis of the idea and what was that moment that made you wake up and say, this is what we should be doing.
Got it. So to describe it in a nutshell, what ShoppinPal does, if you take the example of a small to mid-sized restaurant that's running typically a point-of-sale software system, they have their accounting systems, some online food ordering apps, the usual DoorDash, Uber Eats, and so on. And then, like you said, they've now started transitioning to ghost/dark cloud kitchens, whatever you want to call them. And this is quite a complex network of apps and systems that has been thrust on this poor guy who's running this operation. And there's a very complex set of data flows that needs to occur across both internal and external applications. If that happens right, the business can grow under any circumstance, as we have seen even in the pandemic. There's a lot of restaurants that have flourished. Same for retailers that have been able to adapt to the new normal. And that's where we have played a role, fortunately, to be able to help these businesses thrive and to adapt to these new business models and the emergence of these amazing, fascinating areas such as cloud kitchens.
Perfect. And then talk to us about some of the details, because we all understand the challenges that these small restaurants are facing right now. And there are tens of millions of them all around the world. They're more confused than ever before. There are more options than ever before. There are more things for them to do. And we're also talking about probably one of the largest group of people who are not that great at technology. so they're being pummeled on every side. So talk to us about the specifics of when that particular restaurateur looks like this yesterday, and then tomorrow with ShoppinPal they look like this.
Yeah. So the typical restaurant is evaluating and is being hit with a lot of technology, as you rightly said. And they're looking at, okay, what point I'm running on, maybe an NCR or micros from the olden days, and maybe I need to move to a Toast or Square. So there's a lot of people are going through that type of mental transition and trying out pilots. And then of course, they're almost like they don't have a choice. They've got to pick DoorDash, Uber Eats, and some of these. That's a given, right? So that anyway comes into the mix. And then you have this group of companies like a Gloria Food or a Flip Dish, or some of the new entrants like a Bbot, Ordermark, etc., that come into the mix and say, hey, let's try to get this, save you some margins, right? Why do you need to pay so much to these guys who are delivering orders for you? Why don't you set up your own app and we'll help you do that? So part of our role has been to, when we step in, whether we want it or not, we end up being their confidant and advisor to say, hey, help me figure this out. I'm going nuts just trying to say which systems or apps do I use, how do they work together. So whenever we are thrown into the mix, it's not that we go in and deploy our integrations. First, we gain the trust of the business owners typically, or whoever's running operations, to be able to say, okay, what do you really need and what can you live without for now? And once we've identified that set, then we go in and say, how do these things work like a symphony beautifully together? Let us help orchestrate those flows across all these different applications, both inside and outside.
Yeah,
right?
and that's very beautiful. And I know for investors who are listening, when Sriram is talking about we go in and we help them, the idea is, yes, it starts off at the beginning and from a level of understanding, because what the company wants to be able to understand is what are the most likely flows that different folks will need at different times. However, that entire process becomes automated over time. So we're talking about a technology being able to do this, but the technology is actually going through the machine learning itself right now. And that only happens by being able to actually look at all of the different applications. But fast forward this 3 or 4 years, there is no advisorship, there is no discussions, there are no anything. The only thing that happens is that based on 100,000 different variables, which are all of the things that have happened up to that point, then the system itself can make those decisions and integrate what needs to be integrated. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, Brian. Even now, so we are mostly a product and engineering led company. We don't have a sales force we don't have advisors or anything like that, right? But in about 9 months, we have onboarded 2,500 restaurants across North America and a few parts of Europe and UAE, and they're using 25 plus different type of integration combinations. So there is a large degree of automation. It takes less than a minute to onboard a restaurant, which our channel partners can do. Anybody, literally, the restaurant could self-serve. So some of that validation of automation and scale has already come, but you're right that is going to grow as we invest more into the technology. It will grow in leaps and bounds over the years.
Yeah, and also investors, if you think about this, there's no other way. Like with the restaurants and by the way, this starts with restaurants and then it moves its way out. It moves its way into other sectors as well. But there's no other way for restaurants. They have to continue to integrate. They can't not integrate with like the main folks that can drive either savings in their business or additional revenue in their business. And they can't possibly know the difference between which one and why it's going to be better for them. So one thing that is so much better than being the brand that integrates with the restaurant, it is to become the master brand that integrates all of the integrators with the restaurant. That's the idea here. The idea is to be king of the entire kingdom, to have everything with all of the folks and your lieutenants and your princes and everybody else. They're all underneath ShoppinPal. ShoppinPal becomes that Amazon figure that controls absolutely everything, and which is why I loved your product so much when you came through. So talk to us about where you came up with this idea, because looking at it now, obviously the simplicity that they needed is obvious. The complexity of how to build it is not quite so obvious. This is a lot of engineering work and a lot of teamwork. And I want to dig into the team afterwards. But before I do that, I want to just get into your mind and work out, where did this come from?
So I was, a while back, I was at eBay and PayPal running different initiatives, cross-company initiatives, things like Turbo Checkout, right? The Amazon one-click equivalent over there. And I would end up working with a lot of merchants that would talk about this transition to the cloud, that they're running stores and their marketplace and e-com side of the business, and inventory is out of sync and all the problems that you hear about, right, with all the disparate set of systems and apps. And and this was not true for just one segment of customers in one geography. I would have had hundreds of such conversations across 20 countries, and this was a recurring theme. So and this was mostly retail and e-commerce, right? I was not exposed to the food side of the problem a few years ago. So that at least gave me the idea that, okay, there are two things. One, there's obviously a dearth of applications themselves to solve niche problems. And there's going to be an explosion of applications. Like you look at the growth in the number of apps. If you plot a chart, that's going to be a serious hockey stick, right? Both in retail and food. You'll see that it would have gone from about a couple of hundred to next 10 years would be maybe 15,000. And there's actually some numbers around that. So with those many applications, it's the integration problem is actually the biggest thing that emerges as how does any business, which with any particular combination of apps and systems, how do they end up solving it? So we started out exploring, I was very passionate about building open source. So initially, I dabbled in, along with a couple of the early folks on the team, started building out open source stock replenishment, self-checkout, the Amazon Go experience, right? So we did that for SMB and so on. And in the process, it got hammered in how difficult it is to talk to the backend systems. So more and more, we got stuck on the same point, saying, it's so hard to get access. Once you get access, it's impossible to build a good experience. And if you want to do that problem, the app goes completely ignored because now we're focusing on the integration. So we realized, and we went and talked to these companies, and those companies, the point of sale and the payments and all of these companies said, yeah, that is a problem for our partner ecosystem. Everybody's talking about, hey, give me an easier way to integrate or help someone do this for me. So then we had a fork on the road to say, okay, either we say that we continue focusing on the app side, or here's this very interesting, slightly more complex engineering-wise, but a much larger problem at scale that we could solve. And our DNA was more aligned, and there was more passion in the team for solving the integration problem. So that's the path that we ended up taking, and a vertical focus. So restaurants, we are only about 9 months old in restaurants, right? So all of this has happened in the past 9 months. So we just deployed the technology that worked in retail. We deployed it on the restaurants, scaled it well, and maybe we'll be able to do that for one or two more verticals as well. But there is a definite benefit to being verticalized, which we believe as a thesis is important.
Absolutely. So that's the why. What about the how? Because one thing is saying, well, we placed it here, we did it there, we went in here. But all of this costs money. All of this has cost resources. It's time. It's about building a great team around you. Like, how did you do that?
So it was a little bit of brick by brick and finding people that were aligned with the really, like, for example, one of my first engineering hires was a guy that was one of the founding engineers at Vend, leading point of sale company that was acquired by Lightspeed recently. Mm-hmm. Another guy that was just 2 years out of college, but he, in his sophomore year, he had founded an inventory management system and sold it to a lot of customers. And so these are people that I saw promise in who were coming to me with domain knowledge, as well as the architecture and the code skills. So I was fortunate to find that core group. Another one of my co-founders, Arun, he was at NYU, and then he had moved into banking and fintech. So we got introduced and somehow hit it off. And then he brought a nice dimension of the fintech and the banking side, which is now helping us actually. So we are breaking into payroll and earned wage access. So that's become an interesting part of our latest growth story, which even you and I have not talked about actually. And this is now, so part of the team organically grew into people self-selecting into the mission and what the company is really building. And then we had angels who came along the way who they're investors, part of the team now that are actively doing BDN sales for us as well. So we are again very lucky that one of our investors was attending a conference in Dallas along with the team. So that really helps us scale in the US because now you have people in the Bay Area and the Midwest and other parts that are just putting in their time, not just their money. And that's great, right? So, and the third aspect is that this is a very cash efficient business. For us, we broke even through the pandemic. And then, of course, we made a choice to reinvest and continue focusing on growth and chose to say that it's fine to go cash flow negative. But we realized that there is a certain level of cash efficiency here, which does not require a tremendous amount of capital. So that was part of the third thing where we have strong paying loyal customers, and we've been able to grow that base over time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Because what we're alluding to, of course, is the fact that the Silicon Valley model is a very cash wasteful model. The idea is you should spend as much money. But for investors, what's paradoxical about it is for investors, like there's nothing worse than just mass dilution. And when you just waste a tremendous amount of money, everybody gets diluted all the way down. So what makes you very attractive for investors is like you talk about Zapier, it was like a dream. Honey were very much the same when they did their integrations. It's about how do you get a model that has such tremendous such tremendous consumer value that folks just love it, not because you shove it down their throat on every single channel that you can find. They just love it because it's tremendously valuable. And that's why I really like how you went after the restaurant sector and says, guys, you have a huge problem right now, and we're going to fix that problem today. And by the way, we're going to work together as a team because we're going to find that every single integration you have ever had, will have, maybe you currently have, we're going to find them all. And then all those integrations are going to become a part of our platform whereby we're going to be able to provide you with the absolute 100% guaranteed inclusion of everything that you should or could have within your restaurant.
Right.
Powerful.
And
I love it.
And one interesting aspect on top of that is we've seen that a lot of the customers, the new batch that has come to us, has talked about another type of data problem. Franchises that are not seeing the right order volume because the franchise locations are not capturing, let's say, DoorDash volume. So there's maybe 10% of the volume that's not being reported.
Mm-hmm.
And so the HQ is actually missing out on a lot of revenue because 80, 100 locations are actually misreporting the true order volume. So now that has created an opportunity also to say, use that integration to report accurate data around sales volume and other metrics. And that's also another frontier, which isn't really just about data flow or real-time sync, but solving a business problem which borders into analytics and reporting that has a direct revenue impact. It's not just an ops issue.
It makes sense. I'd like to focus, if we can, too, on, because I think, look, the product fit is very clear. It's a super product fit. Can you grow to 100 grand a month? Easy peasy. Can you grow to $1 million a month? Easy peasy. Does it have the market size to get to $10 million a month in revenue? Absolutely yes. And when we get to the end here, we'll look at that growth and we look at what that journey looks like to take you from where you are today all the way up to $10 million a month in revenue and how many clients you'll need, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to let you finish there. But before we do that, let's just look at the hero's journey for a moment. And let's look at some of the detractors, some of the things which were so terrible, so tough at the start that it may have mortally wounded a mere human being in their search for glory in the startup space. And then I want to move it to folks and people, our advisors, our team members that have really helped you. They've been pivotal on you breaking through. But let's start at the negative, and we all have them, right? There is not, look, I may be an investor, but I started an accelerator, right? So for many years and for many years to come, I was and will continue to be always a startup. So, and if you said to me, name 10 stories of people who tried to destroy you, I would say, crikey, I've got to limit it to 10. So talk to us a little bit about just some of those hard moments, because I think it speaks really to your character for investors that are looking at you. And then some of the amazing things that have happened, they could be from people or from just circumstances that helped you bust through.
Sure, sure. So one of our first partners was this Wend, a New Zealand-based company, Wend Point of Sale, and the one that I mentioned recently got acquired by Lightspeed for about 350 million. So I really hit it off with the CEO, and they were looking to build out a set of inbuilt integrations and capabilities, which when I met the CEO, he said that we don't necessarily want to do this in-house. He looked at our technology and said, this is a great fit. I think we should be doing something together. It was pretty much a done deal. What happened, few weeks went by, there was radio silence. And I followed up with the BD team. I didn't hear back. And eventually, when I, almost 2 months later, found out that these guys had shut their doors. So they weren't going to work with us, but they weren't also not working with anybody for this. And the backdrop of what had happened was they had gotten backstabbed by another partner who had built an integration and then stole a lot of customers from them by undercutting on pricing, etc. And it was unfortunate timing because this was going to be like our one big deal for us to take off. And it just went to zero. And we had already put in a lot of engineering into that because it was like an enterprise white label type of model for us. So that was a pretty big blow because it was one of those early days things that I had a senior guy who was helping on the BD side, trying to maintain the relationship. I had to let go of him. Who really wasn't sure what the next step's gonna be. And that was actually a pivotal moment in terms of saying that, okay, maybe we may have to shut the company down. So what should the 2-3 of us do that may leave an impact or legacy if this was shut down 6 months from now? So we decided to open source as much as we could. So we said, no, this is not now right now. Sure, we're going to fight it out and land other customers, etc. But on the product side, we're going to see that, it's not going to be one of those code that was lost in ether, right? So we went aggressive, open source quite a bit, and a couple of CIO type folks took notice, and we landed customers because of that. So because the selling proposition became that I can get my engineers to collaborate with you, even if you go down, I do have access to the code. And so they were willing to. So we got a customer in the Midwest, a retailer that actually chose Vend as the point of sale and then started working with us, right? And that suddenly changed our cash flow. We didn't, we were back in business. So that was an interesting twist. And there were a couple of similar events where Twitter, Facebook made a couple of announcements which would have seemingly made our offerings irrelevant. But they didn't follow through in the way that the market thought they would.
And by the way, so this is the mark of an entrepreneur for me. I'm going to simplify it by classifying all of us into two groups. There is one group of entrepreneurs, and the way they deal with execution is execute, defend, execute. Right. So I executed something, maybe it doesn't work well, or we do something, I defend that decision and defend why I do it, and then I just keep on executing. And maybe we make small iterations, but generally speaking, it stays the same. And those entrepreneurs very seldom make it. Sometimes they get lucky. And a lot of the time, the ones when they do get lucky, it's because they raised a ton of money from Silicon Valley. So it doesn't matter. Most 14-year-olds would have been able to break through and get a little unicorn for Christmas. But then you get the second type of entrepreneurs who are you. And those are folks that do execute, observe, learn, adapt, and execute again. And that observe is so tremendously important. It's the ability to not get panicked and say, what is it that we need to learn from this? by seeing what we saw to actually be able to adapt and execute better than we executed before. Because it was a big move to go open source. You could have easily said, oh, it's their fault. They're a bunch of jerks. They shouldn't have been so sensitive. They shouldn't have given their stuff away. They should have worked with people they trusted. They should have. Let's just do it again. We'll find more companies. But you didn't. You went through that process of actually coming out with the absolute best possible next execution point afterwards. And I'm fixated in this. That has been the two big reasons why entrepreneurs break through. When the playing field is even, and there's no advantage one side or the other, I believe that the user experience combined with great execution, those two things, they do it. And what you're saying to me there, that ties beautifully into that execution piece. And then what about a piece of good luck? Something that happened, you just thought, oh, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, so there's this one of our angel investors. So I was at this random conference and I was listening to this panel. And this one guy who was a retail CEO of a $8 billion group. I won't name him just because he prefers to stay under the radar. So I really liked what he was saying, very muted, humble style of delivery and just nothing exaggerated, just way it is, but you could take away a lot from the few words that he said. And I felt like, this is the kind of person that I could, like, he had built multiple businesses from 0 to 3 billion, and there was nothing in his demeanor that would tell you that he was that person, right, who did that. So there were a lot of people on stage willing to shake hands with him, and I just couldn't find like the will to do that. I just waited for him and I chased him to the bathroom. And, so I just said, I just told him that, I loved what you said, and I'm trying to build this whole thing out. We're focused on retail and probably a couple of other verticals, and could just use your guidance. And he was really nice. He said, yeah, just drop me a note. I'm happy to advise and so on. And then I used to send out these updates, and that's something I've been regular with. So he was in touch, and he calls me out of the blue, just saying that I want to get more involved. I'm also starting to invest. So can you meet me in person, right? And so I flew to Bangalore, and very quickly, like he came in as an angel for us, but much more than that, he opened so many doors and brought in the perspective, financial discipline, and all these things that I couldn't have imagined getting from anyone else. And so to me, it was what an angel truly, truly, deeply means. He brought all of that goodness to us, and so that really helped us get to the next level with his guidance, and then more people joining in, similar to. And I think I was able to then sort of get a pattern of, like, in first meetings, who are those people who have that willingness to help but not interfere, and who have the right mindset, and they want to do this for the right reasons, same as we do. And so we've been fortunate to get. So there's more than one now, thankfully, about 4 or 5 of these very actively involved investors. And that's been like one of the 10 silver linings or blessings for us, I would say.
And it's funny, you answered when I said to you, what was the maybe a nice lucky thing that had happened that made you think it was a great day? And you led into the story, and it reminded me of a great golfer back in the day called Gary Player. And Gary Player he'd just get lucky with stuff. Like, he did the edge of the hole and it would just roll in, and he'd be in like terrible place and it would just be set up. And one of the reporters once said to him, how'd you get so lucky, Gary? And he said, what I find is the harder I practice, the luckier I get. So the thing is this, yes, there is dumb, random luck out there, but it's very few of us that can actually we can rely on that. You followed a random dude to the toilets. Like, seriously, it's the kind of stuff you could go to jail for. I mean, it's seriously unhinged. So you got lucky, but you got lucky because you practiced harder than anyone else. Everybody else went on the stage. They wanted to say hello. They wanted to shake his hands. They wanted to take his card. They probably would have done nothing with the card in the future, like every other card that everybody does. But they would have felt good that they'd met a couple of good people at the conference. You didn't do that. What you did was you engaged them in a conversation in a place space, that nobody was going to disturb him. And then afterwards, you stayed in contact because you wanted to build great people around, and you built consistency and standardization. There's like, into your communication, there's so many things I can unpack from what you said there, which suggests to me that if an investor is worried about an entrepreneur potentially being flaky because it's early stages and they want to side with someone who is systemized and processized, like you're that person. You're that person that creates the systems to make sure that you enable what needs to be done in the company for the company to work. So I think it's a lovely story, almost as nice as the one where you almost got crucified by damn them, but it helped you build a better product. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's all of these knocks, these Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and all of these moments that happen that help you build a better and stronger product because you're a better and stronger entrepreneur. So I love all of that. Okay, so I want to finish off the podcast by talking about your paths to the future. I believe that investors, the same as me listening to this, are going to 100% agree with what I said about the seriousness of you as an entrepreneur, the quality of the team that you have, the processes and systems that you've built in place to make sure that it's working really well. I think they're all going to love the product. The product makes so much sense. I've seen it in action. I've had your team here and we've gone through it. I know the customers that use you that you can't even talk about, but these are big dogs, right? Folks trust you. So everything from then to now, tick in the box. Everybody's going to be great with it. Talk to us and finish us out with the piece whereby you go from today for the next 4 years in the future. And if you can speak to maybe what type of money you believe you're going to raise, we know it changes going forward, but then also maybe how you see the traction, how you see that being built up over a period of time, and maybe even some of the things that you feel you're going to have to do to get it to go at the speed that you want it to happen at.
Right. So yeah, it's good timing because we recently in the team we went through some deep conversations and forecasting and planning around this because regardless of fundraising, it's important for us to know where we are headed. And so we have the conviction that we can be in a 4 or 5 year time frame, we can hit the $100 million run rate, that this can be verticalized, massive data platform, integration platform as a service. But now the need and the gap in the ecosystem is much higher. So I think as long as we are executing at the pace that's needed, we can get to those milestones in a more compressed time frame.
Right.
That combined with the cash efficiency that is already inherent in this business, I think for us, if we look at a sizable Series A single round should suffice. We do not need to go from A to E or F, whatever the sequence is, because we are already investing in growth today. We are not skimping out. It is just a question of saying, here is a much larger opportunity that in 2022 and 23, we can go out and serve the market in a way that no one is left behind. And so I shy away from things like, oh, we will own or dominate or crush. It's because in the end of the day, you're here to solve problems for those businesses that need it, right? So if you can make sure that there's this audience of people that are looking for what you have, and then you're able to give it to everybody that needs it as fast as possible, then you're going to win regardless. So for us, that is the journey. And one decision we have made, we're already executing on it, is to set up presence in Canada. And so there's a very concrete plan on expanding both our engineering and business team in Canada. We are very bullish about that for multiple reasons that people are, I think investors are also aware about. So that's underway. And before the end of the year, we will have our first couple of folks that are already operating from there. And we haven't made a final decision on the Series A timing and quantum, et cetera, but I think that will fall in place. We're just focused on growth for now. And I'm sure that, we would be able to make the right call in terms of when to do that in the coming months.
I love it. Amazing. No better place to finish. Can you share your email with people so they can contact you directly?
Sure. It's Sriram@shoppinpal.com. That's S for Sam, Robert, Indigo, Robert, Alpha, Mary at ShoppinPal. That's shoppin without the G, shoppinpal.com, all one word.
Amazing. ShoppinPal. My friend, this is going to be a beautiful journey. I could not be more pleased to have you in the cohort and to be building up to where you're going to. I love everything that you're saying. For me, everything that you're building and putting together is 100% the future of restaurants, and I believe many more after that. Thanks for choosing us to be a part of the journey with you, and let's get the show on the road.
Really appreciate it, Brian. Thanks so much.